Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to episode 76 of the Sneider Cut. I am your new plusified host, Jeff Sneider, senior film reporter at Collider, and we've got a jam-packed show for you today, so let's dive right in. Today is the big day. It is March 18th, which means that the Sneider Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League, is now available to stream on HBO Max. Oh my God! I finished it over the weekend. I had to watch it in a couple parts. Obviously, this is a 4-hour movie. You know, this is and it's a bit bloated. I mean, movies aren't supposed to be 4 hours. You know, like a 4-hour cut. You know, like what did anything get left on the cutting room floor? Did he just cram everything in there? It's a lot. It's a big commitment, and I might recommend watching it in maybe 2-hour chunks. However, I liked it. I've been bashing this movie for 2 years. I never really understand why Warner Brothers would go back, you know, to let him finish this, to sink $70 million more into a failed venture. I mean, the movie was, I thought it was irredeemable. I thought it was absolute garbage. But as it turns out, a lot of that was Joss Whedon's doing, because this cut, while it still has some problems and some big problems, including a villain problem, I mean, I just don't think it's interesting to fight CG villains. So Steppenwolf, Darkseid, doesn't matter who it is. It wasn't particularly engaging. However, the movie's good. Like, for a 4-hour movie, it was worth the investment that I put into it. Like, because I could have just stopped. I watched, I think the first chunk was like 76 minutes. And I could have just been like, okay, you know, I get it. But I liked what I saw in those 76 minutes. So I did finish it. And I'm glad that I stuck with it. I think it really showed what Zack was going for, and that Warner Brothers was on the right track with this. Now, it's not like, you know, the suicide, the death of Adam Snyder was like the thing that just derailed this movie, right? Like, I do think that there is a lot of truth in the rumors that Zack Snyder was in fact fired before that even happened, or that he was, you know, off the project or going to be supervised by another filmmaker or whatever. Like, you know, Warner Brothers was not happy with the job that he was doing. Maybe he had his head in other places. Maybe, you know, I don't want to speculate as to, you know, what actually happened there, because I've heard it from people, whether it's, you know, Frosty or Josh Dickey who wrote something. You know, I think it's definitely been out there that Zack was either fired or in danger of you know, serious danger of being fired well before his daughter passed, and that, you know, and this isn't me saying this, you know, that other people said that the daughter's death was used as a smoke screen of sorts. I don't want to be so cynical, particularly with regards to, you know, the passing of a teenage girl, or I'm not exactly sure how old she was, but when I saw that For Autumn credit come up at the end of this movie, I did tear up, and it really, it kind of just emphasized that, like, these movies take years and they take a lot out of the people who make them. You know, it's, I mean, yeah, an actor can show up on set and read a few lines, and like, they're not maybe giving all of themselves to the project, but when you're the director, like, this is a huge ship that you've got to steer for not 1, not 2, but maybe, you know, 3+ years. And in this case, it's probably even longer. I really liked, you know, I talked about this on the new Twitter feed, which we're going to talk about in a second, but I really liked Ray Fisher. Like, I understand why this guy has beef, because it does seem like this performance was almost stolen from him. It was robbed. Now, you know, them's the breaks in Hollywood. A lot of people do great work. Look at Adrian Brody, who we're going to talk about later in the show, and in The Thin Red Line, who shows up to the premiere of that Terrence Malick movie thinking he's the lead, and he's like barely in it. I think a lot of that just has to do with your stature in the industry. And when Ray Fisher signed on to do this movie, he didn't have any. Like, he was a new guy off of the stage, you know, who was famous for playing Muhammad Ali. So, you know, he's leveled a lot of incendiary charges against Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers executives. And I think that there's some racial connotation to those charges, that you know, my part was chopped down because I'm a black guy or whatever it is. I don't believe that that's the case. I do think that his role got chopped down because Ray Fisher is not Ben Affleck or Gal Gadot, you know, or even Henry Cavill, and B, Cyborg is not Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman. Like, you know, he's a tertiary character, but you know, seeing him in this Sneider Cut, like, he may very well be the most important character. Like the guy is talented. There's a reason that he came off, that he even got the part of Muhammad Ali to start with on stage, and did what he did with that role, and you know, that he managed to get discovered and land this part in Justice League. Like this guy is talented. You know, I still don't know how much he's going to be working on movies going forward. I do think that he really did himself a disservice with you know, the war of words that has gone down between him and Warner Brothers, and he's still hammering it home with Walter Hamada, you know, but it definitely helped me understand his perspective, because he does genuinely good work here. You know, I thought Ezra Miller was like my favorite part of the original Justice League, those Flash scenes, and he's even better in this. You know, like I really like the humor that he brings to this movie, which is already kind of dark and dour and a little depressing. I love the big scene in this, you know, spoiler alert or whatever. I'm sure anybody watching this is already familiar with it, but you know, when the Flash has to save Iris West, from like this big car accident, I thought it was a very, very cool sequence. There was a lot of stuff in this movie that I liked. I liked the Amazon warriors. I liked, you know, some of like the evil Superman stuff. Yeah, I just think it added a lot in terms of like character motivations, and like they got rid of all like that stupid, the Russia stuff, that's gone. The epilogue is still a mess, you know, it's just unnecessary to bring in Jared Leto's Joker. And I get, you know, that may be just an example of, we got to give them something that they haven't seen before, the fans, something that wasn't in that original cut. So let's add the Joker. Let's add Martian Manhunter, which is like a little 2-second cameo appearance. Basically, it's really not much more than that. But I understand that for marketing purposes, you want to have those kinds of additions, right? What else? I mean, you know, the score is still really, really good. I just like the Snyder aesthetic more than the Joss Whedon aesthetic. I was not like, you know, the Avengers, I think is a good movie. I think I'd be a real asshole to say that it's not, but like Avengers Age of Ultron was like unwatchable. And I'm not a fan of like Whedon's TV stuff, Buffy, Serenity, Firefly, whatever it is, that just wasn't me. Whereas Snyder, you know, I don't love 300, but I can appreciate what that movie does. I like Dawn of the Dead. I love Watchmen. So I vibe with him a bit more. And I really do. I'm glad, even though I don't like how they went about it, and I think it sets a bad precedent that fans just can demand movies. Like, that's not the way that it should be. I think we have to let artists make what they want to make when they want to make it, and you know, then we react. I don't think we can be art on demand is a dangerous, scary thing for me. But you have to give those fans credit, not just for the work that they did with suicide prevention and all that. And I know that they've been incredibly toxic online. I'm sure, you know, I've taken shit, and so have my colleagues at Collider, all for just giving our honest opinions on things. But I am glad in the end that Zack Snyder got a chance to make this, because it did redeem him to some extent in my eyes. I don't think, I know people are like, oh, look at the critic assessment. It's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes at one point. Of course, there's going to be a sequel. Like, I don't know that there's going to be a direct sequel to this. This feels like a one-off to me. Yeah, it was an expensive gamble at $70 million for HBO Max, but at the same time, like, what else are you going to spend that money on? You know, like, if you want to drive eyeballs to this platform, which it desperately needs, you know, you might as well appeal to fans who are going to follow you anywhere. So probably a not a terrible business decision from HBO Max to get this out there. And maybe it inspires other filmmakers to go back and redo their movies. Not that I want to see David Ayer's Suicide Squad cut. God, that was pretty terrible too. But then again, if he does do it, I will give that cut another watch because, yeah, I thought that movie looked amazing. That was like the trailer of the year, and I was just so disappointed by the film. So I don't, who is it Warner Brothers doing the meddling? Like, I don't know what was going on at this period in the DCEU over at Warner Brothers. But I do think that there's been some course correction. So yeah, Sneider Cut, I got to give it a thumbs up. Not perfect, not my favorite comic book movie or anything like that, but I never thought that something like this would be possible after watching that initial movie. Like I just didn't think that there was that project could be salvaged. And I stand by everything I said as far as like this cut did not exist, 2, 3, 4 years ago, whatever it was. Like this is something that, I mean, $70 million is no joke. that is almost a new movie. So I don't understand the people who said, well, you guys didn't know what you were talking about to start with. Like, yeah, I think pretty sure we did. Now on the flip side of the comic book wars, which is kind of cruel that Marvel decided to do this, but they are releasing Falcon and the Winter Soldier this weekend, I believe. And I had the chance to watch the first episode the other night. It was like 1 a.m. or something. My internet was like in and out. But I finally got it going for just a 48-minute stretch. That is, I think, the running time for the first episode. And I can tell I'm going to like this show. It's not that I didn't like WandaVision. I just didn't care. I watched 2 episodes of WandaVision, and that was enough for me. It's not that I'm never going to finish it. I might go back because we'll see how much of WandaVision I need to know for Falcon and Winter Soldier. But this seems like something I will actually tune in for each week. If just to see my boy Anthony Mackie. Now him and Bucky Barnes I don't think that they really link up in this first episode, if I'm not mistaken, which is like kind of a rope-a-dope because that's the whole reason. Like I thought that's what the show was. It was this buddy action comedy like a Lethal Weapon, but you gotta establish where these guys are, in the MCU after the blip or whatever. I don't know all the fucking terms, guys. But there's some really cool action sequences here. Starts off with a big one with Anthony Mackie's Falcon, and we meet Red Wing. Was that in other Marvel movies? I don't even know, but it's his little like robo sidekick. Bucky's like in therapy. There's like a therapy scene that kind of drags on a little bit too long. He's been having some nightmares. And then, by the end of it, we are introduced to, never mind. I'll leave some surprises. I don't want to say too much. But I liked it. And it's very, very different than WandaVision, much more kind of straightforward. And I think that Disney Plus will ultimately benefit from that. I mean, WandaVision was very cool from what I saw. It was ambitious, but I don't think it was like, this is right in the sweet spot for Marvel fans, whereas I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is. All right, the Oscar nominations came out on Monday. That was obviously a big deal. If you haven't seen the latest episode of For Your Consideration, track that down over on the Collider Experts YouTube channel. Collider, the old Collider video. I was happy with everything, although, it was pretty predictable, right? Like we were talking about like 12 to 14 movies and we knew that 7 to 9 of them were going to get slots. So yeah, there were 2 or 3 or 4 movies that didn't make the cut that felt snubbed, but everything else was fairly predictable. I almost wish that I had actually done, rather than if I had a ballot feature on my blog, the Insider.blogspot.com, I kind of wish I had done like formal predictions because I think I would have gotten them pretty close. Like Glenn Close. I had a feeling that she was going to get in there. Over like the Helena Zengel thing. Like you don't nominate mute 12-year-olds. Come on. That's not how that works. Oscar nominations. I'm not surprised that Mank led the field, right? Like everybody kind of saw that coming. I don't really know. I don't think Mank's going to win much. Maybe it wins one for like production design or costume design or something, but it's not going to win any of the major awards. And I feel fairly comfortable saying the same about The Trial of the Chicago 7. I do think that in some ways Netflix is still almost operating like it's the old Academy, and they're lining up these kind of traditional Oscar bait movies. And I don't think that these movies have a chance of breaking through. I do think it's stuff like Moonlight, Parasite that will break through. And so David Poland actually wrote a great column this week, I thought, about the Oscar nominations and how, Mank and Trial of the Chicago 7 were always seen as like the number one and number two internally. But he thinks, if Netflix really wants to win Best Picture, it's not going to be there for their number one movie internally. And I think he's very, very right about that. I do feel bad for One Night in Miami and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I don't think that either one of those movies was like a shoo-in for a nomination, but at the same time, I thought both were clearly among like the top 8 or 9 like awards contenders this year. I don't think that it has to do with the cast or being black or the filmmakers being black. I think that it is really just about these are stage adaptations. Like the words were already kind of there. And, the movies, they feel, I don't know that small is the right word, but, One Night in Miami is mostly a movie set just like 4 guys talking in a hotel room. Like that's going to be a tough Oscar sell no matter what. Just like Mass, that Sundance movie about the school shooting, the parents of the shooter and the parents of a victim. Like, I hope that's not being positioned as like a big awards contender, because I think that stuff is hard. Or what was another one? People just talking in a room. Like, wasn't it a Roman Polanski movie with Kate Winslet and the parents talking? I forget what the hell it was called. It wasn't good. Yeah. I think that's all, like that's just what worked against them. I don't want to chalk it up to like anything racial. I mean, Regina King is like one of the most beloved people in this industry at the moment. I do think that she did a really, really good job. But frankly, I was more of a Ma Rainey's person. So when everybody's talking about One Night in Miami not getting snubbed, like I thought Ma Rainey was a better adaptation. Yeah, just better cast, more engaging and involving, just by a little bit. But that was the person who I was like, oh man, George C. Wolfe, he kind of got robbed, or really Darius Marder. I mean, knowing how much I love Sound of Metal, I watched Another Round this week. I caught up with that, and I liked Another Round. It was good, but Best Director nomination for that, 20 minutes in the movie, a sixth of the running time is people just dancing, drunk people dancing. I really, I had a tough time stomaching that nomination after seeing that movie, knowing the people who didn't make the cut, like Regina and Darius Marder. But yeah, I was thrilled to see The Sound of Metal represented so well with Riz and Paul Rassi, and that's really all I cared about. Those are the guys that I'm rooting for. I think Best Actress is going to be a real showdown. I'm leaning towards Carey Mulligan at the moment, but I do think Frances McDormand did incredible work in Nomadland. There seems to be a bit of a Nomadland backlash brewing, not just here about the movie or giving Frances McDormand her 3rd award, but abroad with all the Chloe Zhao stuff. Excuse me, went down the wrong pipe. And so, yeah, speaking of awards, I wanted to bring this up too, because, the Golden Globes thing continues, right? That was like the huge thing. And we had 150 publicity houses writing a letter to the HFPA, saying we want to see this, this, and this. And I mean, it feels like, Tina Chen, the CEO of Time's Up, like she's just like the god of Hollywood now. Like if you don't have Time's Up on board, then you're just doomed, right? They get to dictate everything. But like, the thing about these Golden Globe publicist letters, and listen, I am friendly with a lot of the publicists who signed this letter. I think that there is a lot of good people, but a couple of things. How many of these PR houses even have 13% black staffs themselves? Not a lot. Believe me. A lot of these places are lily white. You know, or the, you know, the black staffers work in the diversity and inclusion department. Like, I just, I don't like hypocrites. And this letter felt a little hypocritical from the publicity community, knowing how kind of white it is. You know, meanwhile, all these publicists knew. Like, I don't understand how it took an LA Times article to say, hey, you know, by the way, everyone that your talent has been doing interviews with for the last few years, they're all white people. Like, I'm pretty sure the publicists knew this, and they did it anyways. The same reason that they knew that, you know, that there were no black voters, and then still had their clients go on and present it at the Golden Globes anyways, because it's about money. It's about FaceTime in the middle of prime time on network television. Like, you know, that would have been a much braver, bolder stance to me if publicists had literally pulled their clients off the telecast and said, there's no consequence. There's really no consequences to this stuff. So what? The Golden Globes are going to now add 13 black voters, and again, keep in mind, these are supposedly, because you know that these voters are going to be created by publicists. Okay, this is 100% what's going to happen. These voters will be created by publicists, and then they will feel indebted to these publicists. And who knows if they're going to do what these publicists want next year. But this is what's going on. How many black entertainment journalists are there who, A, live in Los Angeles, okay, B, want to be part of the HFPA, C, write for international outlets? Like, that is a very rare, like, that's a very tight little narrow sliver of people. Like, that's a niche. I mean, how many, I don't understand how many people are writing for internet. Like, it's not even on the HFPA. It's on the editors of the international outlets to hire black stringers, writers, whatever it is. And then it's on those people to choose to live in Los Angeles. Like, what is this living in Los Angeles requirement of being in the HFPA? It doesn't really make any sense. Is it just so they can all travel as a herd to studios and press conferences and presentations and stuff? Like, it is not supposed to be your full-time job even. Like, some of these people in the HFPA, they write like a piece a month, but they don't even have to get other jobs because of all the payola that they're getting from the studios. I just think that the HFPA is a super crooked organization that cannot be fixed, even with 13, you know, new black voters. It is rotten to the core. And I really like someone on my Twitter feed. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't give them credit. But they said, why are we not like, okay, this group is only relevant because it has history and a TV deal, right? So why is NBC give the TV deal to somebody else? You know? Like, make it the Guild Awards. Like, why are we have the SAG, the PGA, the DGA Award? Like, just fucking combine everybody, get all the guilds together, and that $50 million payment that NBC makes to the Golden Globes to air its show, that $50 million can now be spread over the guild community. It just makes so much sense. Why is Hollywood playing ball with this corrupt organization? Like, they had their chance, they had their time, they fucking blew it. Let's move on. It's just crazy. Okay, now we'll talk about the new plus on the block, which is my Twitter feed in Sneider Plus. This is something that I had been planning for a while. I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast before, but I'm like, geez, think about how many people, not just me for the last 10 plus years, but how many people are just sitting there all day long, tap, 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 tap into Twitter. What does it get them? You know, okay, maybe it gets them subscribers or more readers for their own private blogs or their Patreons or their YouTube channels or whatever. But like, what happens if you don't have any of that stuff? I had 15 subscribers to my YouTube channel. I didn't upload anything in years. Who cares? I didn't have a Patreon. I have a full-time job. I'm a salaried employee. I'm actually not an employee, which is why I'm allowed to basically do this. But I'm an independent contractor, technically. But it's like, okay, I've been giving away my thoughts on movies, my opinions, reviews, breaking news, all this stuff on my Twitter feed for free. And I've leveled off at, 33.6 thousand followers or whatever. It really had not grown in months ever since I basically took the break, last summer. Like, I don't know there were some people who like either stopped following me or I don't know what it was. But I really didn't see myself gaining any followers the last few months. And so, okay, I've reached the ceiling. I've sort of plateaued with the Sneider, and I can either just keep giving it away, or, I've thought about starting a newsletter, things to that effect. But I was like, you know what? I know what I'm doing on Twitter, and I like the immediacy of Twitter, and I like that people are on Twitter all day long. You don't have to go to Patreon. You don't have to look for the email to pop up. Like, if you're just on Twitter all day looking at the feed, well, what if there's a way that in my head, it's like, okay, well, if you're following me, then I must enhance your experience of this platform, right? Like, otherwise, if I detracted from that experience, you wouldn't follow me. So if I'm enhancing your experience, how much are people willing to pay for that enhancement? And what can I do to make my content better rather than just sort of the same content it's been for the last 10 years? I want to create a community, right? I mean, that's what, Christian does with the Schmodown. Outlaw Nation or Perry's channel or Roxy, Live at the Roxy. Like, all these people have sort of, communities, fans who tune in just for them. So how can I build something like that without having to go the Patreon route, and this and that? And I was just like, so I created this Sneider Plus Twitter account a couple weeks ago, and I knew I was going to get shit for it. I knew I was going to be the laughingstock of the internet, which is why I didn't pull the trigger 2-3 weeks ago or months ago or years ago. I was terrified. I didn't want to do it. And then on Sunday, I was sitting on the couch with my dad and his girlfriend, and I got the email from Warner Brothers that said, we're lifting the embargo on Zack Snyder's Justice League a day early. You're free to post now. And I was like, you know what? I'm just tired of sitting around waiting for myself to fucking do it. I'm just going to do it. I didn't think about it. 5 minutes before Sneider Plus launched, I had no idea it was launching in 5 minutes. Okay. That's a promise. I had no clue Sunday was the day I was going to hit the button on this thing. I didn't think about pricing, didn't think about content, didn't think about anything. I just said, you know what? Here it is. I'm doing it. And so far it's worked out pretty good. I mean, do I have only 20 followers? Yeah. But at $20 a pop, that's $400 that I am now made for tweeting that it's $400 more than I made in the last decade. And no one is forcing anyone to follow. I'm going to wean myself off the main Twitter feed, but I still need the main Twitter feed to communicate certain stories, to promote my work and whatnot. And so, basically what it is for $20 a year, not a month, a year, which breaks down to less than $2 a month, which I think is fair. I think I'm worthy of 6 quarters a month. I think I bring that to the table. You're getting the Sneider feed, but then you're getting the bonus content, right, on Sneider Plus. And it's all in the same timeline. What do I hope to do with this? I'd love to break. The breaking news thing is tough because obviously I'm being paid by Collider a handsome fee. But at the same time, there are things that Collider isn't interested in sometimes, or that I can't report for Collider, or you basically, it takes 20 minutes nowadays to get a story up on Collider anyways, with all the bells and whistles I got to put on a story, the related tags, the photo tagging. It's crazy. Collider is not built for speed, and that's fine. That's their prerogative, right? But I am built for speed, and I'm going to use that speed on Twitter. That is so, when Venom 2 gets a new release date, I say, okay, I'm jumping on the story, guys, but I have 5, the same way that I would on the Sneider, right? Breaking, Venom 2 coming out this day, story coming. I'm going to do that on Sneider Plus now for the people who are actually paying me for that speed, for that information. And I did get it up before any of the trades yesterday. So if you followed Sneider Plus, you knew Venom 2 was blinking from that Fast 9, showdown before anyone else. And that is the goal. There's a lot more I want to do with it. I want to have more of a conversation with my readers. Like, I know all 20 people by name who are signed up for this account. Did I know all my Twitter followers before, all 33,000 of them? No. And frankly, I would rather write and create content for 20 paid customers than for 30,000 who don't really want to be there, who don't really care about me. And it was really, I will say, I like I said, I knew I was going to get shit for it, and I was going to be like the laughing stock of the internet. I was pretty surprised by some of the responses, which were just super negative. I don't know if I got a death threat. I may have gotten a death threat, not one that I took seriously. I got people being like, "Oh, you're so arrogant. You're such a narcissist. You're giving it a bad name." Like, I'm just a guy who's creating a new Twitter account, and you can pay for it or not. I don't care. Like, no one's forcing you to sign up for this. So it's like, would you go out to like, 2 10-year-old girls in their lemonade stand out on the street and be like, "Wow, you guys are stupid. I've got Newman's Own lemonade in my fridge. Like, what are you, a moron?" Like, so think about how all the stupid shit that people pay for, and the people who have no expertise in this industry and talking about movies. Why? Because I watch a lot of movies, so that makes me an expert. They're not experts on movies. They're not experts on the industry. So at least I'm providing something that a lot of people that you're paying for cannot provide and do not provide. That doesn't mean that those people have nothing to offer. I love going on my friends' YouTube shows, but like, when I see people paying, whether it's $5, $10, $100 to get a question read on a live stream, right? On a StreamYard, you're telling me that is worth more than a year's worth of tweets and access to my Twitter feed? That's insane. That's obviously absurd. So, people who are, here's $50, $60 a year for a newsletter, but like, what's the newsletter really telling me? Is an essential thing? No, it's not. And again, my Twitter feed is not essential either, but it is a fun bonus thing. And I think that I'm going to seriously work hard over the next 362 more days or whatever it is to deliver an experience that is worth paying for. And it has forced me to get organized. I got to keep records now because I got to declare this tax income. I got to, know when your 1-year anniversary is. All that kind of stuff. But I think it's going to be, it's not radical. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but at the same time, I don't know anyone else who is doing this. And I bet that there are a lot of writers out there who are looking at those 20 followers of mine and saying, geez, I have such a bigger, fan base than Jeff Sneider. It's much more engaged than his. Why am I not doing this? How can I monetize my brand, my Twitter feed? I think that a lot of the responses that I got were from jealous people who were afraid to do this themselves. I saw people digging up old tweets like, "Oh, I love that. I love that move. Like, we're going to dig into, the worst tweets that you've ever had." And like, "Oh, is this kind of stuff we're going to be getting?" Or the people who, when I tweet from the normal account, are like, "Oh, that should have been a premium tweet, Sneider. How are you not charging people for this?" Like, if you want to be a fucking asshole and a sarcastic clown about a guy who's like trying to start a new venture, to put a little like side money in his pocket, because I'm not compensated the way that I should be, or the way that people of my experience and position are, by all means, but you're going to get blocked. I'm not going to have any fucking patience for you. And basically, you can kiss my fucking ass. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? Like, I'm the best fucking Twitter feed around. What do you want me to say? Okay, Mike Fleming, Boris Kitt, Justin Kroll. I will tell them they are better reporters than I am. They have better sources, but as far as a social media experience, like, give me a break. I'm not just talking about like the scoopers, but I'm talking about like everybody. The people's opinion, like, it's just fucking chattering noise. So I think my Twitter feed is worth paying for, and I think and I hope that the people who embarked on this journey with me feel the same way. And if they don't, then after a year, they don't have to re-up their subscription, and they lost $20. It's not anything to cry about. So thank you to everyone who did join me and anyone who's considering joining me after this podcast. All right, let's talk about some other news because, geez, we are already like spent a lot of time on stuff. All right, Paradigm selling off its music business. This is not good for Paradigm, considering its music division was obviously the big, big part of its allure. They sold the business off to Casey Wasserman. Who knows? I think they said they're going to try to find strategic partners for its talent and lit division. Either way, not good. The writing on the wall is not good for Paradigm. Chris Evans. Justin did that story on Deadline I don't know if it was like a couple months ago or whatever, saying Chris Evans was in talks to return to the MCU. Now it's Falcon and Winter Soldier time, a lot of Captain America talk in the air. And so Kevin Feige did an interview with like EW or someone saying, basically like poo-pooing that report but like he didn't even deny it himself. That's the thing. You got to read this thing closely. Kevin doesn't come out and say, no. He says, well, you heard it from the man himself, Chris Evans. Like, okay. I don't want to get too much into like what I know on this story, but I'm pretty sure Kevin's full of shit. Pretty sure Chris Evans is full of shit. And I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing Chris Evans again in the MCU. I just, the things, the quotes that, that people pick up, it could be Friday, right? The day's Friday. And Chris Evans says today's Thursday. People will run, actually today's Thursday because Chris Evans said it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Of course, these actors are going to deny this stuff. Of course, Kevin Feige is not going to get ahead of himself. But like I said in our company Slack yesterday, when we were thinking about doing this, I trust Justin Kroll 10 times out of 10 over Kevin Feige. Sorry, Kevin. Like, all due respect. This is just reporting 101. What do you want me to tell you? Now, yesterday, speaking of Chris Evans, this is a story that we opted not to report because it got denied. But it's something to keep an eye on. So that's the way I'm going to present it here on this podcast. Which, by the way, if you're watching the video podcast, you're only going to get that on InSneider Plus. We've decided to just do audio only on Collider. So if you like this video version of the podcast, you will have to subscribe to InSneider Plus. Okay, so Chris Evans, he's got Gray Man, had just started shooting, Ryan Gosling, the Russos directing, etc. Yesterday, we got sent a screenshot from Palak Patel's Instagram account. Palak Patel runs the Russo brothers company, right? Doesn't he? And so does he? Right? Does he run the company or is he at Netflix? I even forget where Palak is, but he's definitely involved. He's an executive producer on the fucking Gray Man. Anyways, he went on Instagram and he said that Gray Man was going to be out this Christmas. And so we nearly did a story just based on that. I mean, this is the executive producer of the film saying, hey, the movie's coming out at Christmas time. Ran it up the flagpole at Netflix and they denied it, which is, I do think that would be a very ambitious release date for a movie like this. That's going to be like 200 million plus. Like, normally that takes like a year and a half, something like that. Then again, it's Netflix. They don't need a year-long marketing campaign. That's the kind of beauty of it, is that they can just, once a movie's done, they can say, hey, this movie's coming out in 3 weeks. Here's a trailer. Stay tuned. I think this would kind of be a perfect Christmas release for Netflix, obviously. I don't know when they're planning to release Red Notice, if that's more of like a summer movie thing that they're doing, or if that's going to be their Christmas anchor. Yeah, like I said, I'd be surprised if the movie was finished by then, but I also think it's possible, since this is the Russos. I mean, if you do a 4-month shoot, right, and then 4 months of post, you could have it done by Thanksgiving, early December, in time for a Christmas release. But again, this got denied by Netflix, so we're not running anything. Take this with a grain of salt. Don't run it as a rumor. Because when a streamer like that is willing to just say, no, this isn't true, then you don't run it. That is what I've learned. If there was any like, oh, well, maybe, or we're aiming for that day, we're shooting for it, we're planning for it, maybe we would have run it. But it was a pretty definitive no that it's not going to be ready in time. So we'll see. Maybe Palak Patel was just mistaken. Maybe he got ahead of himself. Comic book stuff we talked about, Venom 2 blinking, that moved 3 months from this June to September, and that was just like an inevitability once Universal parked F9 on that same date. Like, I know Venom 2 was Venom was very successful, making 850 million worldwide, but you don't gamble on that sequel. I mean, it's only going to benefit from more time on the shelf because more and more people will have been vaccinated by September. So I understand wanting to have been first out of the gate, or come a month later, on the heels of F9. But once F9 moved there, it was like, okay, let's not fuck around with this. Move it to September. It's still going to be crowded in September. I mean, it's got I'm not too worried about James Wan's Malignant because I haven't heard the greatest of things about that. That comes out the week before, but there's actual competition the following week. I think it's Dear Evan Hansen, and then 2 weeks later it's Dune, and once Dune comes in, I mean, Dune could totally flop too. Don't get me wrong. But basically, Venom 2 is going to have 2 weeks in theaters before Dune comes in, and you can count on a huge marketing blitz for that movie. Ridley Scott announced a World War II series I thought sounded interesting called Roads to Freedom. It's kind of like a global perspective of World War II. It's not just the Americans or the Brits, but hey, here's France, here's Germany, here are the kids, whose dad never came home because he died on the front lines. And, it sounds like a really interesting approach to a story, even though it feels like we've sort of done World War II to death. It's just, just another World War II project to add to the heap. This one is Ridley Scott. It is from Stephen Knight. And so, it has my attention. Oscar contenders, announcing what their next moves are. I thought this was pretty interesting that Carey Mulligan and Daniel Kaluuya are both going to be hosting Saturday Night Live in early April. Now, voting doesn't close until April 20th. So, I don't know if this is it is obviously a high profile gig when you're hosting SNL, whether people are staying inside more to watch it on Saturday nights or the clips go viral the next day on Sunday. It still has some cultural cachet. So I don't know if this is just a PR stop, and I hope that it's not, because I don't want to see SNL being used in that way as just another stop on the PR tour. But the fact that neither of these people have hosted SNL before, I think that could make it pretty exciting. I'm really excited to see Daniel Kaluuya in particular on SNL. But it's also, this is a high wire act that you are live. If you are not funny, or if this is just a shit episode, that could reflect poorly on you. So, Mulligan and Kaluuya are kind of the front runners right now in their respective categories. And it seems like they have more to lose than to gain from these appearances. But if they do a really good job and start, making people laugh, maybe that bolsters their campaigns, Elsewhere, Stephen Yen, who got a nomination, becoming the first Asian American actor, I believe, up for Best Actor. He is teaming with Ali Wong on a new A24 dramedy that has sparked a bidding war among the top streamers, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, and then FX, which may even have the upper hand here because the series hails from, I think it's Lee Sung-jin, aka Sonny Lee. I was like, I've never heard of Lee Sung-jin, but I feel like this doesn't get made with just a first time nobody writer creator. And so I looked him up and it's oh, Sonny Lee. I know Sonny Lee. What's that? Always Sunny in Philadelphia, of course. And Silicon Valley. Dave, he's been working on, I know, for FX. He has a history with FX. Maybe he goes to the devil he knows, so to speak. Rather than these streamers, where things do tend to get kind of lost in the shuffle, particularly on Apple, which just doesn't have the subscribers that I think that Netflix and Amazon do. We can just see that kind of anecdotally in the traffic on Collider, where it's I don't know how many people are really subscribed to Apple or maybe they're free subscribers because they bought a phone or a computer, but how many are going to pay once that 1 year free trial is up? But I love the idea of Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong working together, particularly with A24 behind him. So we'll see what comes of that. Colin Trevorrow or Trevorrow. I never really know how to pronounce Colin's name. Colin T. Going to be directing War Magician, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, about a guy who, I don't know, like fought in World War II using magic. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. It sounds kind of weird. But I don't know. It also sounds interesting. Like imagine The Prestige or The Illusionist, but like a war movie. And Cumberbatch, I do kind of like this pairing. I like Cumberbatch. Like just the idea of him as a magician. And this does kind of sound like an interesting project for Colin. So we'll see how that one comes together. This one sounded good. Dakota Johnson starring in Cooper Raiff's new movie, Cha-Cha Real Smooth. Cooper Raiff is the writer-director star of Shithouse, which I only watched 30 minutes of, and it just didn't grab me, but I also watched it really late at night. It was probably the wrong timing for that. And then by the time I tried to finish the screener, it had expired. I do want to go back and catch up with that movie, but his sophomore feature, his follow-up, he's going to be playing like a bar mitzvah DJ, you know, the kind of guy who's got to get everybody up on the dance floor and make sure mom and dad get their money's worth by throwing this epic party. And she's going to be playing a mother. I don't know if she's a single mother or what, but she's got an autistic daughter. I don't know if their paths will cross at a bar mitzvah or outside of one. But I like the idea of the two of them together. You know, I had a big bar mitzvah. I was the oldest. So I kind of got the big bar mitzvah party. And we had this guy, Johnny K, who was a lot of fun. I mean, he's like one of the best in New England. And he brought some very attractive dancers who were a big hit with my 13-year-old male friends. And we definitely have many photos of them in the album. But yeah, it was just a great time. And I can totally see Cooper Raiff playing one of those sort of bar mitzvah DJ guys. I remember Johnny K, and this is, you know, we're all 13-year-olds, so people might think this is risque, but I remember he went up to one of my friends and he was talking to him and he was like, whoa, he was like, why does your breath smell like his dick? It's like, well, wait, how do you know what this 13-year-old boy's dick smells like? Number one, but it's like it's a good joke. It's maybe a little homophobic joke, but hey, that's what kids like it when they're 13 years old, right? Borderlands, I guess it's not homophobic. It's just a gay joke. Borderlands added the Haley Bennett, the actress Haley Bennett. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Borderlands added Haley Bennett. She's going to be playing a new character who has ties to Cate Blanchett's past. Haley Bennett kind of came on the scene a few years ago, did some weird movies like Girl on the Train and Magnificent Seven, like movies that were supposed to be studio hits that just did not end up being studio hits. Like Thank You for Your Service with Miles Teller. Not like bad. Well, Girl on the Train is bad, but I didn't think Magnificent Seven or Thank You for Your Service were like bad movies. They didn't really hit. But you know, last year she was in this indie drama / thriller Swallow, and she was really, really impressive. Like, this is her front and center. Here's what I can do. Here's what I'm all about. And she was great. So I'm glad that she's sort of being rewarded with a big, studio action movie, maybe even a franchise title. We'll see. She also does look a lot like a young Cate Blanchett. Like, I would not be surprised if she was playing like a younger sister of sorts or some kind of relative. Tiffany Haddish going back to Netflix to star in Mystery Girl with McGee at the helm. McGee has really found the sweet spot just directing Netflix movies. I don't know that if he even has any like larger ambition. He's just like, they let me do what I want, whatever. The money's the same. Yeah, she's like a woman who like she's a street psychic or something, and she has like no memory of herself. So she is Mystery Girl, whatever. I've heard better ideas, lambied about. That's not the right word. Bandied about. Tiffany Haddish, I've heard better ideas bandied about for her as like comic vehicles, but whatever. Tom Hiddleston joining Claire Danes in the Apple series The Essex Serpent. Jeez, I am all over the place. I gotta take a drink of water. Tom Hiddleston, he's got Loki coming up. He did Night Manager. the movie thing hasn't really happened. He's another guy where it's like, okay, Crimson Peak, Kong Skull Island, these are not good movies at all, bro. So he's going back to TV with his serpent tail between his legs to some extent. But I do like the sound of this show. Him and Claire Danes, like that's a formidable pairing on Apple. And then also and a whole bunch of TV news. Demian Bashir, love Demian Bashir, Oscar-nominated actor. See a Better Life if you have not. He is going to star in Let the Right One In. He's going to be playing the young girl's father. Quite a few actors cycled through this role, let me tell you. But I'm glad that they landed on Demian. It's kind of crazy, some of the names that I'd heard bandied about before Demian, because he was just clearly superior, I thought. But I am looking forward to that. Even though we've seen that story twice now, I think that could really work as a Showtime series. And I think that the writers have something special, up their sleeves with that one. Here's a TV casting I absolutely loved. Adrian Brody playing Pat Riley in the HBO Lakers series. My goodness, I saw them side by side. I was like, oh my God, yes, sign me up. Sally Field was also added as Jerry Buss's mother. Here's hoping that show debuts maybe this summer so they can advertise it like during the NBA finals. That's what I would do if I was HBO, try to get a trailer out, during the NBA playoffs or something like that. But that's going to be a fun one. Maya Rudolph announced a new Apple series. She is, just a blast. I always enjoy Maya Rudolph. Doesn't matter whether it's a big part, small part. She just always brings it. So I'm glad she's getting her own show on Apple, even though I know she's had her own like variety shows and things like that in the past, and it hasn't really worked. You just got to find the right format. Davine Randolph joins The Lost City of D, that Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum movie. David Strathairn in Where the Crawdads Sing. Anthony Boyle joining Masters of the Air, which an eagle-eyed reader told me is being shot by Adam Arkapaw, I believe, the cinematographer. Masters of the Air, it's a big series. It's Cary Fukunaga, Steven Spielberg, Apple, sort of billed as a sequel to Band of Brothers. I had heard three names originally, and it was, Austin Butler and Callum Turner and Anthony Boyle. And so we agreed to hold all three. And then I went up to New Hampshire a couple of weekends ago with my brothers. And naturally, Apple made that Friday the day that they're announcing, Callum Turner and Austin Butler. I sent in, the release to Collider, and no one thought it was important enough to write it up. So it's like, okay, if you guys don't think that this is a big deal, then what am I going to bust my ass to write about it for, right? Like, so this week when Apple was ready to announce Anthony Boyle solo, they sent me the release. I'm like, you know what, guys, I appreciate it. You lived up to your end of the bargain here, but we're going to pass. Like, if this isn't exclusive, which it's not, I would have had to share it. Just let the other outlets have it, because we don't, it's just another TV casting. Even if we're getting an even break, no one knows who this guy is. And if they didn't care about the two leads, they're not going to care about the third lead. So, that's unfortunate, because it's like I busted my ass to get those names and worked hard to confirm Callum Turner and Austin Butler, but the team just didn't care, and that's Collider's prerogative. That's the kind of stuff where, all right, you'll end up seeing it on Insider Plus then. Lawrence Fishburne and Michelle Yeoh joining in The School for Good and Evil, Paul Feig's new movie. Putting together a nice little cast with Charlize and Kerry Washington. I don't know if it's a movie for me, but whatever. Netflix nabbed the He's All That movie. That's the sort of revamp of She's All That, although it's bringing back Matthew Lillard. That was sort of buried in the release or the announcement this week. I assume that he will be reprising his role, his goofy, charming role from She's All That. I love Matt Lillard. Like, he's great. Rob Delaney, the comic, who I enjoy as a comic. He had a big week. Him and a bunch of other people I'd never really heard of. Maybe I'd heard of Nick Kocher, but they joined Judd Apatow's new movie, The Bubble. And then Rob Delaney also joined Mission Impossible 7 and 8 along with Carey Ellis. Like, fucking great cast that McQuarrie's got for Mission Impossible 7 and 8. I still don't feel the need to write up every black and white photo that he posts on his Instagram. I just don't understand. Like, that is stuff that is for Instagram. It is for social media. If it's a first look at Tom Cruise, in the new Mission Impossible movie, that's a different thing. But like, a photo of Henry Czerny or something like that, I just that can be for social media. We don't need to make a news story out of that necessarily, even though it all performs very well on the site. But yeah, McHugh pulling together, like between these guys and Shea Wiggum, like he's got his eyes on the right character actors. And me, I love character actors. I love going to the character actors awards ceremony every year. Apple TV making moves this week, signing Natalie Portman and her company to a first look deal, as well as the Imagine Boys, Brian Grazer and Ron Howard. Those are two significant pieces of talent and good producers with good eyes for material. So Apple building itself a nice stable, adding all kinds of stars to its galaxy. The Safdie brothers announced they're doing a Paul Reubens documentary for HBO, I believe it is. Not like a huge Pee Wee Herman guy, the Paul Reubens stuff. I think it's his, some of the arrests and things like that are a little bit more interesting to me. It's funny that Paul Reubens, I think he'd written like a dark Pee Wee Herman movie for himself and wanted the Safdies to direct it. And so he must have approached them. They're probably like, listen, we're not directing a dark Pee Wee movie, but we'd love to do a documentary on you if you'd be open to that. And maybe that's just how he saw the opportunity and took it. Maybe he came to them with this idea. I'm not quite sure, but it is certainly intriguing. The Safdies doing a movie about Paul Reubens, who has had one weird, wild life. Warner Brothers announced an Hour Man movie. I think that was Kroll's scoop at Deadline. Beats me. Don't know what Hour Man is. Never heard of it. Seems desperate. Don't care. What else? I did want to back up to the HFPA thing real quick, because I'm now remembering this rap story that my friend Beatrice Verhoeven broke with Sharon Waxman, saying that the HFPA had canceled press conferences from movies and shows with all black casts and stuff like that. Like, first of all, that's fucked up if it's true. Really fucked up. Although the article, they did sort of push back against that idea that, I think that they said, well, actually Universal canceled this conference and this conference was canceled because of a scheduling thing. So, like a lot of things on their app, I think there's definitely some truth to it. I don't know if they nailed that story 100%. But again, like when they mention something like Queen and Slim, like if that is actually the case, that we wanted to do a press conference for Queen and Slim and the HFPA said, we're not interested, we don't care. Then why is Universal, we're bending over backwards to play the game for News of the World this year, and that's the thing that's that hypocritical thing. It's that, okay, well, clearly the people who spoke to the Wrap for this story are saying the HFPA is a racist organization, right? That they didn't allow us to hold press conferences for our black films or shows. And yet they still went and played the game the next year because that's what they care about. They care about awards. It's just, people only have a backbone and ethics and morals when it's convenient for them. So that Wrap story, whether it's 100% true or just 85% true, it is worth a read for sure. All right. We got trailers, reviews, no mailbag questions this week. And by the way, if you are an InSneider Plus subscriber, your question will absolutely be read. Like, I want to basically be getting mailbag questions from InSneider Plus subscribers going forward. So please, whether you're a subscriber or not, you can email me, DM. So we've got trailers, reviews coming up. I want to talk about a recent death as well before we end the show. Let's do that. But first, we're bidding RIP, rest in peace, rest in power to Yaphet Kotto, who, and I think it's either Yaphet Kotto or Yaphet Kotto. I'm not quite sure how the pronunciation went on that one. I've always called him Yaphet Kotto. I love this guy. Always have. So he was, Lieutenant Al Giardello on Homicide. That's how I sort of first fell for his work. And that ran from 93 to 99. So I was 9 years old until 15 years old, right? That Homicide was on the air. I loved Homicide. It was like my favorite show growing up, basically. I've been into this kind of stuff since I was a little boy. I remember skipping dances in 6th and 7th grade when I was 12 and 13 to stay home and watch episodes of Homicide on Friday nights. And my love for him on Homicide led me to watching Alien, where he's incredible as Parker, and Midnight Run, where he's, Alonzo Mosley. And so anyways, last year I had that character actors corner feature that I have not done in a year, because I'm very picky about who I interview. That's why there's no up and comer of the month every month, although there will be one next month. And so I reached out to his agent to try to set up this interview. And Yaphet Kotto had been living in the Philippines, so he was kind of a hard guy to reach. We had a couple of weeks of back and forth. Eventually, he emailed me and was like, "All right, I'm down to do the interview. We got to do it over Facebook Messenger." And I was talking to a journalist friend of mine who works in the music industry, and I was telling him, like, so I turned down this interview with Yaphet Kotto because I don't do interviews over Facebook Messenger or over email or text or anything. That's just not how I like to work. I like to have a conversation. And who knows how long the lag would be on Facebook Messenger or email, like when's he going to respond, that kind of thing. Is he even the one typing or answering his questions? It's that kind of stuff. So I don't do interviews like that. And we basically left it like, okay, we'll circle back when he can, access a phone or, has more access to a phone, that kind of thing. And so, his death hit me, not just because I was a fan who actually admired this guy, but because I was kicking myself for being a little bit of a snooty prick. Like, guy that age, probably not entirely well given his history of alien encounters. He's written 21 books about his extraterrestrial encounters. So probably dealing with some kind of maybe mental health issues or something. I probably should have done the interview, because, sometimes you just got to take what you're given, take what you can get. So I lament the fact that I did not get a chance to talk to him. I will, save the email that he sent me, because it means a lot to me. And yeah, I'm going to miss this guy, because he was just fucking cool. He was like a force of nature, and he'd been around a long time. And I'm sure he had some great stories. I really like the story he actually told about how he went to like an early rally or address from Martin Luther King Jr. And I think he was like looking up at MLK on the podium or whatever. And he was like, how do I get to be that guy? How do I get to be a leader in my community and, famous or whatever it was? And years later, he was in that same spot. I don't know if it was with his daughter or something like that. And basically, a bus full of Japanese tourists pulled up, and everybody ran out and started yelling, "Alien, alien, alien" at him. And he realized he had made it, that he was known, around the world and beloved to some extent. So that's my Yaphet Kotto bit. R.I.P. Trailers. We got trailers for 4 Good Days. I just wrote that up for Collider. That's Glenn Close and Mila Kunis, like an addiction drama. Mila Kunis has to stay clean for 4 days so she can get an injection that'll prevent her from sort of feeling those opiate cravings. And so Glenn Close has to keep a close eye on her. Glenn Close up for an Oscar, surprisingly, for Hillbilly Elegy. I thought she was good in Hillbilly Elegy. Most people just didn't care for the movie. It is her 8th nomination. Maybe this one brings her 9th, although it did take more than a year for this thing to come out. It actually premiered at Sundance 2020. Confronting a Serial Killer. This is this is a Starz docuseries from Joe Berlinger. I just wanted to say, Joe Berlinger, I worshiped this guy growing up because of the Paradise Lost movies. Like, they are, I don't think you can do better documentaries than that first Paradise Lost, to be honest. But lately, I mean, he's just involved in almost every fucking docuseries I see, which speaks to a couple of things. One, he knows what I want to watch. Like, we have the same taste in cases and crimes and that kind of thing. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't know, man, maybe just like spend a couple years really digging into one subject and dropping something like that is on the level of a Paradise Lost, because the shows that he's done, and with the exception of Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, which I thought was good, couldn't really get into the Mormons one. The Ted Bundy tapes thing was not good. Cecil Hotel one bad, I thought. So it's just like, Joe Berlinger, I don't want to get down on you, man, because I like you, but I would really like to see you spend a little bit longer on a project that really has some teeth to it, rather than just sort of toss out like the true crime docuseries every quarter. You know what I mean? Speaking of true crime, it's in a sense, it's a true crime. We got a trailer for The Last Cruise, which is an HBO documentary short. I nearly wrote this up for the site until I realized it is just a short. We don't really do a lot of short coverage, let alone documentary short coverage, but it was terrifying. Like the footage from that cruise that where the coronavirus sort of had its outbreak, and like half the passengers on the ship are sick with coronavirus, and they're just trapped at sea for weeks on end. Seemed like a fucking nightmare, like a dream vacation that literally became a nightmare. So I definitely want to check that out when it hits HBO at the end of the month. We also got a new trailer for In the Heights during the Oscars, right? Was it? I think it was. And it looks great. In the Heights, if I was Steven Spielberg, I'd be shaking in my boots, because I just have a feeling In the Heights is going to sort of be like the hit musical of the year. I mean, it's not to say that West Side Story won't make money or be a huge Oscar contender, but I feel like if it's West Side Story versus In the Heights at the Oscars, West Side Story is going to lose. And don't forget Dear Evan Hansen, like I said earlier, still coming out. It's going to be a big year for musicals coming. And you know, maybe that's what people need, because it's been a dark year. We need some uplift and some joy. Reviews. Okay. I'm trying to get this show done in the next 7 minutes. After the Murder of Albert Lima, it is a documentary on Crackle. I know what you're thinking. It is Crackle. I don't have Crackle. I never want to have Crackle, blah, 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 blah. This was a great movie. I was into it the whole way. It's not going to win any awards for its filmmaking. It's a little rough around the edges, but it just had a very compelling protagonist. It's like this guy whose father was murdered in Honduras, and the courts have agreed, like, your murderer is guilty and sentenced to 16 years, but we're not going to capture him. You've got to capture him, and then we'll stick him in jail. So he brings 2 bounty hunters down to Honduras and tries to get this guy. It had a very powerful ending, I would say. It's from executive produced by Meredith Vieira, produced by Gunpowder and Sky, a company I like. So if you have Crackle, track it down. At the very least, check out the trailer so you know what the hell I'm talking about. Last night I watched Operation Varsity Blues, the college admissions scandal documentary on Netflix that features a lot of recreations with Matthew Modine. I thought it was very, very engaging. Thought it was really good. Learned some stuff that I didn't quite know about that whole scandal, and really felt for the sailing coach at Stanford who kind of got roped into it. I also watched The Last Blockbuster last night, which is a totally fun documentary on Netflix, and kind of funny because Netflix is what put Blockbuster out of business, and now The Last Blockbuster documentary is streaming on that platform. I wasn't aware of the Apollo 13 story, but apparently Netflix all started because of Apollo 13, and which is a movie trying to get on the National Film Registry. I'm surprised it's not already there. But basically, Reed Hastings rented Apollo 13, and when he brought it back, he had like $40 in late fees, and that is sort of what inspired him to create the mailing movies sort of thing. Which Blockbuster ended up copying, but they didn't have the capital that Netflix had, because, Summer Redstone and Viacom were sort of using Blockbuster, taking the money that company was making and putting it into Dish or whatever it was. I don't fucking know. It was just interesting. And then the last review is Calls, the new Apple series from Fede Alvarez, which I'm giving a big fat F. This was a complete and total waste of time. Yes, you saw me write up the trailer, and I thought it looked interesting. I think a big mistake that this show made is that all the stories were interconnected. If you had just given me 10 different stories that were really good, and instead it's like the same story like 10 fucking times. It was so bad. I could not wait for it to end, and it does keep you watching. Like I wanted to know, well, what is the big thing that's tying everything together in the last episode? Because there are 3 or 4 episodes where it's like, oh, they're actually calling back things from that one and things from that one. All the episodes are like 13 to 21 minutes or so, they're not going to kill you. But man, so disappointed. It's just watching a screensaver for 2.5 hours. I mean, we listen to podcasts like when we're focused in our cars and things like that. We don't like stare at our phone watching the podcast, button, the thing go by to show us how much time has elapsed. And that's basically what this was, with some bright colors on the screen. It was so stupid. That is going to do it for the show. We're going to end the show on this note. A lot of anti-Asian violence happening in this country. And I don't know if it's, that everybody just needs somebody to pick on. Everybody needs like a scapegoat or something. And people are upset about the coronavirus and Trump supporters who have heard it called the China virus. This shit is crazy. Okay. Asian Americans, there's American as you and I. It's the same way Minari is like the most American fucking movie of the year. This violence has to stop. There shouldn't be violence against anybody, but clearly it's become some sort of epidemic against Asians and Asian Americans in this country. It has sickened me. So like this guy that shot up, the massage parlors or the spas in Georgia, like give this fucking guy the death penalty. What is this? Like he had a bad day shit. Like I just never heard cops like sympathize with a mass murderer, a spree killer like this before. They're trying to rationalize it. I'm seeing news videos of people, waiting behind corners for old Asian people to walk past so they can pummel them in the head. Like what is going on? It is absolutely disgusting. If you know anyone who has done anything like this, turn them into the police. If you know anyone thinking about doing things like this, urge them to stop. And if you see Asians or Asian Americans being harassed, fucking do something. Step in, try to diffuse the situation before, it escalates. I don't know, maybe even approach, I mean, this feels weird to say, but like maybe even approach an older Asian man or woman. If it's late at night, say, hey, can I help walk you to your car? Make sure you get there safe. Like, it's just fucking sad. It's a sad time in this country, and I feel terrible about what is happening. So hopefully there are brighter days ahead. I mean, I certainly feel it with Biden at the helm. It doesn't feel as toxic when without Trump on Twitter every day. Like things they're definitely calming down, but doesn't mean that the problems just go away overnight. So we all have to be vigilant, and let's keep our Asian friends and neighbors safe. That'll do it. That's it for the show. Thank you for watching the Sneider Cut or listening. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to Insider Plus. I do appreciate it. You're a part of a groundbreaking experiment of sorts, and I'm honored. So everybody, have a great rest of your Thursday, a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Keep wearing your masks. Vaccinations are coming. Don't worry. Take care. Bye.